Uncle Dan,
I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah, stop it.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Hey, back off. Spread out.
Listen.
Hey, you two. Listen. Don't you two get
You know
into
what?
this.
I want to step between you guys and just let's see if we can work something out here.
Fuck.
Uncle Doug, would you like to say anything before we move on?
I would like to say...
I'm going to stop you right there.
Uncle Mark, I forgive you.
Well, I don't know
And
for what, but that's awesome.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Well, I thought today, it being the fact that it's Thanksgiving weekend as we're recording, and we could talk a little bit about, well, let me put it this way. Last week in our fair state, down in Utah County, in a school called Deerfield Elementary School in a town that I had not even heard of called Cedar Hills, which is like a suburb of Alpine for those local listeners.
Does Alpine have its own suburbs now?
Even Pluto has a moon. So it's about 40 minutes south from where we were sitting. A substitute teacher asked her students for what they were thankful for. Most said things like turkey and mashed potatoes, the family dog, or getting a couple days off school, which is obvious and cute.
Yeah.
However, one boy, having very powerful reasons to be thankful, said, "I am thankful that I'm finally going to be adopted by my two dads." You see, this 11-year-old boy
Melts my heart.
Here's the thing. The fact that you're telling me this story means I know it's going to go badly, but right now I'm just going to enjoy that that's adorable.
I'm going to make you feel really bad and then really good about this story.
Oh, okay, good.
So
thank God.
Yeah, because if it ended before the next thing...
This is an emotional roller coaster. I can't handle it.
This 11-year-old boy was in the final stages of being adopted by a lovely gay couple. He had been down this road twice before with other families, but for unknown reasons, the adoption didn't pan out. So, yes, very sad, very cute.
Can you take adopted kids back?
I'll just leave them by the side of the road.
Yeah,
that's what I do.
With the others.
But he was now mere days from being, fully and finally adopted by this couple.
Oh, God bless.
And so, yeah, very happy occasion. What was the substitute teacher's response to what in all possible universes is good and heartwarming news? She said, quote, "Why on earth would you be happy about that?" She went on, "Homosexuality is wrong, and two men living together is sin. That's nothing to be thankful for."
Was the substitute teacher named Anita Bryant?
Exactly.
Holy Jesus, that is some. First of all, that is straight balls to say to a bunch of children,
right?
And when at your job, like. You got to have. I guess she's a
substitute teacher.
And again, the casual cruelty of Christians.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
To not think how unbelievably emotionally violent that is.
Yeah, it is literally like just traumatizing.
Like his life is about to change. Oh, profoundly,
and
for the better.
I'm going to make it even worse. This piece of shit lectured her class of 30 10-year-old, 11-year-old kids for the next 10 minutes. About her views on homosexuality and our permissive culture of sin.
God.
By all accounts, she also tried to blame the child, who, with lowered head, weathered the abuse because he was terrified that this woman's reaction might jeopardize the adoption.
Yeah.
And that perhaps his new family wouldn't want such a worthless troublemaker.
Oh, my
So
God.
he just tried to get through it.
Yeah, of course he did.
Now, this is not a Mormon story, even though I will bet all that I own that this evil creature was Mormon. If I told you this scene took place in basically any rural school in any state of our country, or indeed in any of 100 foreign countries, you would believe me.
Yeah.
This is simply what happens when a society teaches its people that gays are evil. But this woman is
and that it's your fucking business to say something about it.
Exactly.
To children.
To children.
Like, fuck.
But
the children of gay people.
Exactly.
Fuck.
But this woman is not the subject of our conversation today, nor should she merit any more of our precious time than this. But this story has a surprisingly happy ending. 3 girls in this class, all of 11 years old, were not having it. They vociferously objected in the moment to the substitute teacher's abuse, and when she didn't stop, the 3 of them marched their asses up to the principal's office and brought the principal back to the room.
Holy shit.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Yeah.
And the principal dragged her ass off of campus and fired her there, right then and there.
Damn.
So there is a good and happy ending.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know anything about Utah County, it's kind of Mordor.
Oh my God.
And it's hyper conservative. It's the most conservative part of the state, of a conservative state.
Of one of the most conservative states in the country.
Yeah. So these little brave souls
are amazing.
Yeah.
And the fact that in the moment, right, while this woman was hurling this abuse, they stood up for this kid, and when she wouldn't shut up, they're like, "Nuh-uh, We're ending this.
Yeah.
That is a level of bravery. And I mean, the kids these days are not seen and not be heard.
Yeah.
Children anymore.
Nope.
Like, it is a different world.
Yeah.
But still, that is straight up like
Baller.
baller.
Yeah.
If you
So proud.
need a lesson in what allyship looks like, it looks
There it
like
is.
that.
It looks like marching out of your 11-year-old classroom
Yeah.
and knowing that you need to get to
Putting
do
an end to
something.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just love it. I mean, there
Holy
are cruel
shit.
people in the and evil people in the world, but I want to focus on these three girls and what it took for them not to hesitate for a second. Not specifically on them, but about the moment. And I'll kind of lead it off with a couple quotes. Edmund Burke said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." And
Or good little girls.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, good little girls. He said men. W.B. Yeats said about the end of the world that, quote, "The best lack all conviction while the worst are full of passionate intensity." And we seem to be living in that world right now.
Yeah.
Back in episode 53, we discussed how to confront people who were pushing their religion or religious views in public or in workspaces, stuff like that. But today I want to have a discussion about how and when to step in if people are being abusive. Basically, when and if you should intervene in a confrontation.
Right.
Yeah.
So my YouTube and Twitter feed is basically just a laundry list of people being shitty to other people.
Right.
Mostly white people calling the police on black people for barbecuing, delivering packages, driving,
Yeah.
being in their house, or, existing while black.
Watching television in their house by themselves.
But we've also seen other white people being shitty to Muslims on buses, or white people being shitty to Asians in a grocery store, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not always white people, but I couldn't find any examples of another one.
We are not going to not all white people this thing.
Exactly.
Fuck you. It is all white people.
Oh, man.
It seems more and more that the worst among us are emboldened by the likes of Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Erdogan in Turkey, Vladimir Putin, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So I just want to have a discussion about, we are all probably going to be witness to some kind of abuse or some shitheel doing something shitty in the next few years of our lives. And how do we process when and if we should step in and intervene, and how that intervention should go?
Right.
How do you go through a decision matrix about whether and how you step in? So,
Because this is, look, the truth is, not all white people are shitbags.
No.
no.
And if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I'm not a shitbag, and you're a white person, then
Good.
great. Let's talk about how we can be actively not shitbags.
Right.
And I do
when
think-
we had Tori Glass, our friend Tori Glass, on the show, and she talked about, and it was just before Thanksgiving last year,
Yeah.
and she talked about how, specifically white people and white men could use their privilege as a defensive mechanism could cash in some of that privilege in moments like a terrible Thanksgiving where racist shit is going down.
Right.
And rather than trying to cool off Uncle Joe, you go at him.
Yeah.
You challenge him on that sort of thing and protect people, vulnerable types who might be in the room.
Now, it may not be so let's be careful about this. I know, Doug, you're going to lead us through this on we'll get to some very specific things that we can do. But I do want to say that, like, it's not always easy. This is not always like
No.
The course is not set.
It's not always so fucking obvious like that teacher.
Right. Well, and even if it is, it's not always obvious whether
What
or
to
not
do.
you
Yeah.
can whether or not it's safe or wise for you to intervene.
Exactly.
What the price will be.
Because while some prices should be paid,
Yeah.
while it's worth actually, there's some things where it's going to make you uncomfortable or put you in some sort of bad situation.
It can alter the course of relationships. It can alter the course of a lot of
sometimes
things.
it's worth it.
Well, and the decision matrix for me.
Yeah.
I'm a straight white guy, very well endowed, pretty beefy. The decision matrix for me to step into a
Is this
confrontation.
the game again? Are we doing false? Are we doing true or false?
Yeah, that decision matrix is very different for me than it is for, say, a black woman or a Muslim or you know what I mean, like,
Or 11-year-old girls.
or 11-year-old girls.
Right.
Like, I kind of feel, for me personally, I'm kind of obligated to step into any confrontation.
Right.
Because I'm not worried about the cops being called.
Right.
That is not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not terrified of it being swept up in a way that's going to be detrimental to
And
me.
even if the cops are there,
Yeah.
Like, I'm not worried that I'm going to be shot just for standing there,
Exactly.
or just for talking to them, or even for fucking yelling at them.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
I have no problem screaming at a police officer if I need to, whereas that would be very unwise.
Yeah.
For a person of color.
But
For a person of color.
There are many ways to intervene, and I'll just give you what I really want to get to is I remember all the times I have intervened, and a few times that it's happened I have, but I'm haunted by the times I didn't.
Yep,
And
same.
one in particular, and it's not a very good one, but I sat on a plane. I was flying back from Atlanta, and I sat down. I was window seat. The guy sat down next to me and wanted to make conversation, and I really didn't want to make conversation.
Because you're that guy.
I'm one of those flyers. I don't want to talk to you. I'm sorry. But he, basically it came out within 2 or 3 sentences that can you believe that these black people are kneeling at football games?
Right.
Right? And this guy was he was flying around the country to go to Civil War sites to write a book. He's that guy.
And he saw your whiteness as
Precisely.
as you were in the same country club as him.
He saw me as white. He's like, obviously I believe that black people shouldn't kneel at a football game. I'm white.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to talk to him, and I didn't want to engage, and I found my way out of the conversation, got my headphones on, and didn't talk to him.
Yeah.
And I've regretted it every day since, because the thing I kind of didn't process was I was thinking I'm stuck in here for 3 hours with him.
He should be stuck in
reality
there
is
with you.
He was stuck in there with me.
Yeah.
And I could have had that guy for 3.5 hours,
Yeah.
but I didn't. And that's
Yeah.
a very minor example, but I regret it.
Well, the truth is, you probably wouldn't have had 3.5 hours of conversation. What you would have had is 7 minutes
A very uncomfortable conversation.
very uncomfortable
And then a
conversation,
lot of silence.
and then the silence you so desire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, frankly, yeah, you really should have jumped in
I
there.
should have said something.
Yeah.
And that's a good. The truth is, in that situation, would you have done any good in the world? Who knows?
At the very least, he would not know in his head that every white person agrees with
Right.
him. Yeah.
I'll give a story of when I did intervene because I don't have that many stories. Like, this is one of those things where, and look, there is the danger here of this becoming about white heroes, and fuck that shit.
Yeah.
And so, like, look, if we cross that line, okay, feel free to call us out or whatever.
Right.
I will say this: your thing, you're right. Had you spoken up with him, at very least, he might have thought twice about making someone else uncomfortable in the moment. I, at one point, was in Kentucky. I was getting a cab to the airport, and the cabbie was driving along, and he, was talking about he was talking shit on other cabbies. This was back before Uber was a big deal. He was just talking shit on other cabbies, and was like, because I had told him about the mess that I'd gotten into trying to get to the airport, to the hotel that I was getting to. The cabbie didn't know where he was going, and he was like, "Oh, blah blah blah," and used a racial epithet about other cabbies, and I didn't say anything, and I just sat there like as he was speaking. I'm like, "Fuck, how do I handle this?" I can't just let it slide.
Right.
How do I? And so, like, fortunately, I had a few minutes to think while he blathered on in front of me. And when I finished the thing, I paid him a $20 bill and then asked for full change back, and then said, "I'm not tipping you, and the reason is because you said towel head."
Interesting.
And I just wanted to make it. I just wanted to make the point: don't fucking do this shit.
Right.
Yeah.
It was the same point that you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't think I'm going to make him not racist anymore.
Right.
No.
But at very least, he will not inflict that on. Like, he saw a consequence.
Racists should be at least nervous.
Right.
Right. They should be nervous that somebody else's white skin, and I guess this guy was a white guy, somebody else's white skin should not be licensed to just pour out all your hate.
Yeah, that old canard where every racist joke starts with looking around the room, right?
Right. Yeah.
But we're living in an age where no one seems to be looking around the room anymore.
Right. And I do want to. This is sounding like I'm tooting my own horn, but it was important to me to say the why, not just to not tip him. It was important for me that he understood the reason.
Yeah.
Well, that leads me to my next point: is if you do decide now. Deciding to engage in a confrontation or intervene in a confrontation is a very personal decision.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
it can lead, you don't know where it's going to go.
And if we have time at the end, I'll talk about an intervention I was involved in that went very sideways.
We don't have time. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm afraid we're going to have to cut you off.
Yeah.
You don't know where it's going to lead, and in our culture, in our country, it can lead to violence.
Yeah.
And it can lead to the police being called. It can lead to a million things. So this decision process is very, very personal. But I would say, as our friend Jim would say, what is your goal? What do you want? So you wanted this guy to know that there was a price to be paid for using that language, right? If you're intervening, are you intervening to try and stop the actions from happening? Are you intervening to try and shame the abuser, which sometimes is a useful thing to do, to teach a lesson? Are you doing it to support the person that's being abused and just let them know they're not alone? Because what you're trying to do as your goal will inform your tactics.
Right.
And remember, everybody's amped up. When you get into a confrontation, everybody's body squirts adrenaline into the system.
Yeah.
Right.
So everybody's amped up.
Yeah.
So are you if you're trying to diffuse the situation, swearing or yelling?
Do you go in hot? Do you go in super cold?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you the rational one?
And I think that's an important distinction, because if what you're trying to do is make the person sitting next to you feel less shitty,
Yeah.
maybe screaming and yelling and starting a fight in that situation won't make the person sitting next to you feel less shitty. It might actually make them feel more shitty. So there may be an opportunity for you to say, I'm not okay with how you're talking. Let's change the subject.
Yep.
Or I don't agree with that. I think that's a terrible way to be, but I don't want to keep going with it because I think that, blah, blah, blah. You do need to consider what your goal is.
Yeah.
Before you just launch.
Are you trying to de-escalate?
Right.
And there's other passive ways of intervening.
Right.
You could record it. You could be one of those that just gets out your camera and makes sure that there's a record of this.
Right.
Yeah.
You could.
Yeah. If somebody's yelling at someone, if a cop is doing something, it's a bad idea for you to intervene with a cop, but it's a good idea for you to whip out your phone and start
exactly. And you can, for instance, if it's a person of color that's being abused, which is very often the case, if cops are called, stay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Be there when the cops get there. So it's not just the two people.
Right.
The white guy and the black guy in this confrontation.
The MAGA motherfucker and some poor kid.
You're a witness and say, hey, I saw this.
No, that's not how it went down. I witnessed this whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a whole panoply of things you can do to engage, and and it's just having been through this, as we all have, we've all witnessed shitty behavior. There is a real fear and terror that exists there because you don't know where it's going to go.
Well, and there may be moments when it's not worth engaging the other person. If you're walking down the street, and your gay friend is with you and someone yells fag, it may not be worth it to get into a fight with that person.
Yeah.
But you could be there to comfort your friend or whatever. Like it's hard to know what the right thing is. You have to judge that for yourself. But there's a lot. I mean, you can yell asshole back, but
sometimes helping a person walk away is also an intervention.
Yeah.
Let's just get away from here.
Yeah. Let's go find a place where it's not full of assholes.
Yeah. Well, let's hear your story of a
Okay, so I was in my house, heard some screaming outside, and it was, there's different kinds of screaming, and this was bad screaming.
Right.
Because I live across from a park, and sometimes you hear children playing, so you get used to screaming. But anyway, this was bad screaming. So I go outside. There's my neighbor. There's a woman about my age. And there is two white dudes. One of it, my memory swears he had a MAGA hat on, a red MAGA hat. And there were three black teenagers. And one of the black teenagers was on the ground.
Oh, boy.
And a lot of screaming was going on. And my neighbor was in between these two parties. So I go running across the street because I think they're going to get my neighbor's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Right. And so I go running across the street. The guys, luckily, they see they don't know I'm a big old fag, but they see a white guy running across this man.
Right.
Running across the street. They took off across the park. So
which guys?
The white guys. The men who were clearly in the wrong here.
Right. Okay.
And they ran off across the park. I'm trying to get from my neighbor what's happened. And these kids were on the ground are Somali kids. There's a kind of a Muslim community center near me that go to this Somali Muslim community center. The girl was wearing a hijab.
Right.
Black kids. She's screaming on the ground. So my neighbor's trying to pick her up. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. My neighbor says that the white guy said, "We kill your types here. You're not welcome." And the girl got in their face, and he punched her in the mouth. So I'm trying to, make sure these kids are okay. So I said, well, I'm going to call the cops. So I called the cops, and the boy was like, please don't, please don't, please don't.
Oh, man.
And all of a sudden 911 picks up. And I'm like, and I'm like, I got to call you back. They're like, no, we're calling you back. And I hung up the phone. And my phone starts ringing. And the boy's like, they're teenagers. He's like, we've been drinking.
Oh, boy.
He's like, we don't want the cops. Please, we don't want the cops. And I'm like, fuck. So I'm like, do I chase the guys that did this through the park? And they were kind of long gone. And I said to these kids, I'm like, well, let me walk with you to wherever you're going, right? So that you don't feel under threat anymore.
Right.
And the girl's screaming and crying, and they're just, I'm just another fucking white guy.
Right.
Right? And so they're like, no, we don't want you. We don't want you. And it was an attempt at some kind of intervention.
Right.
But it was just shit.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, at least maybe seeing me, the guys decided it wasn't worth it to continue this anymore.
Right.
But everybody just kind of walked away from it like,
Feeling
fuck.
lame.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but maybe there was value to me running outside.
Yeah.
You know,
no, and the thing, the unpredictableness of this is part of the point.
Yeah.
Those 3 11-year-old girls didn't know how that was going to end.
Right.
Right. But they did, and it worked out very well.
Yeah.
But not every confrontation, in fact, I would venture to guess most end up with everybody feeling really shitty.
Yeah.
And nasty, and you know, so
Yeah.
that has to be.
I think that's one of the what your story points out is an interesting thing, which is that like we can't, in our zeal to try and be helpful and to try and parlay our privilege into something that can be used for someone else's benefit, we can be overzealous.
Right.
And can
If the cops had come, I can't guarantee what would have happened to those 3 kids.
yeah,
Right.
but maybe the truth is that they might have been much more they probably would have been more interested in an assault than they would have in some underage drinking.
You never
Yeah.
know.
And very bad Musliming, if we're going to be honest.
Right. And then their Muslim parents are going to come
Yeah.
and realize they've been drinking, and there's a whole nother sideways
Yeah,
fucking
who knows?
situation, right?
Who knows? But the point is, if your help is unwanted, then understand that and fucking back off.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's that element to it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's none of this is easy.
Yeah.
But I think it is important that those of us who can commit to being helpful
Yeah.
people in the world.
And it's not just white men, because that's
No.
not what this is about. But
It's not.
the presence of an older woman, an an old lady or an old man,
Right.
in a situation like that, can change the dynamic.
Exactly.
Because unless you're a true psychopath, you're not going to hit this old woman.
Right.
Right. You're not going to hit this old man.
Right.
You're not going to hit a child unless you're a
Right.
crazy person. So anybody has the moral authority to do this sort of thing if the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah.
And you need to figure out sort of where your parameters are.
And that's that's exactly right. So I've gone through the live shooter training with the local SWAT team.
Oh yeah.
It's a class. It's not like you do anything physical
For your business.
for my business, and then I teach that training to my business, the people in my business, like what do you do in case of a live shooter,
Right.
active shooter, and the first thing you need to do is think about the fact that it can happen,
Right.
and internalize the fact that it could happen,
Right.
Yeah.
So I think for us and our listeners, like you watch all those YouTube clips. What would you do in that situation?
Yeah.
How would you have helped?
Ask yourself some questions.
Yeah. Where are you willing to go? Where are your boundaries? Where are your parameters?
Yeah, I think that's good. Like actively watching those videos instead of passively watching them and being outraged by them.
Kind of role play, yeah.
Actively watch them and go, where would I be if I were in this?
What would I
scenario?
have done?
How could I have made that better?
And if it is like, for instance, an active shooter type situation, it may just be run and hide.
That's the number one piece of advice: is get out.
So don't. I mean, it doesn't mean how can I be a hero,
Right.
but it does mean. But it is a good way to ask, to sort of say to yourself, like, what could I have done that would have kept all as many people safe as possible, including yourself.
And a perfect example, this happened just yesterday or the day before. There was a crazy person with knives on London Bridge.
Yeah.
And some people fucking stepped up.
I hate to correct you, but it's Tower Bridge.
It was a Tower Bridge?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Was it? No, it wasn't the Tower Bridge.
I think it was
Tower
London
Bridge.
Bridge.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, I mean, I know that lots of people call the
Exactly.
Tower Bridge the London Bridge.
Not the point of the story.
There was this bridge in London, and somebody had a narwhal tusk, and I don't know what the fuck was happening.
Yeah, three guys.
But, people they gamed it out in their heads in 2/2 of a second.
Yeah. Right.
And decided to do something, and it could have gone completely the wrong way.
They could have died.
They could have died.
But I mean, that's an extreme example.
Yes.
Yeah. But I do think that more and more we're seeing cops do bad things to people.
If
people
everybody had narwhal tusks,
if you have access to a narwhal tusk while you're in the situation,
if we limit narwhal tusks, only bad guys will have narwhal tusks.
That's right. The only way to stop the bad man with a narwhal tusk.
Yeah, just start carrying one around like Gandalf.
And what happens when the narwhals attack?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
good question.
At least they'll be tuskless.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of it. I just wanted to have a little discussion about the increasing number of shitty people and their
the increasing number of phones to record them too.
Also that.
Yeah. So be like an 11-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And if you see something, say something.
If you can aspire to be as brave as those girls were, you should do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
All
that's
right.
it.
All right. Well,
Thanks, Doug. Now we all feel a little bit scared and like we probably
a little bit on alert.
There you go.
we're all superheroes.
Well, with that, now acknowledging that we three are superheroes, let's move on.